He is the currently the president, CEO of Nihonmatsu Agrivoltaics. My name is Kondo Kei, and we're looking at a new horizon for agriculture. So let me just explain myself quickly. So 10 years ago, I was in Nihonmatsushi and I was working as an organic farmer in Nihonmatsu. And then during the incident, I quit my farming. But 10 years later, I'm involved in combining composite agriculture and photovoltaic solar energy generation. So we have Nihonmatsu Agrovoltaics and Nihonmatsu Local Energy together. This strange ghostly photo, I want to just tell you, why is it a phantom photo? Because this shows how the terribleness of the 3/11 disaster. This is just, I snapped this picture. I've only got this one picture, but people are not stacking rice to be distributed here. What they're doing is this rice, where from 2013, any rice that was made had to be thrown away under this policy. The black border on this map here shows areas where you're not allowed to plant. There's too much radiation there, so you're not allowed to plant, anything there. The pink area here is, there was a lot of radioactive particles here, but even if you didn't want to plant things here, you had to plant and grow things in this area. And as you might expect, in autumn of 2011, anything over 500 becquerels per kilogram could not, under consumer protection, it could not be shipped. So 37,000 rice fields worth of rice was thrown away and incinerated. And a 90-year-old in the area said to me from Koriyama, "This is worse than war. We can't tell what's coming and we've got no hope." And organic farming in this area, we were in a spiral of unease about shipping these products that might have radioactive contamination in them. And what the people who helped us so quickly, these 3 NGOs, international NGOs, came to our assistance. One would be APLA, which is a Philippine international from the Negros crisis. When there was the Negros crisis, they have provided support to locals, and these 3 NGOs have been very supportive to Fukushima, and they said Fukushima 100-year future class, and we said, what should we do? Concrete action. We've got the nuclear problem, discrimination problem, social problems, and so ICEP, this organization called ICEP, gave us some ideas on specific concrete action that we could take, and ICEP taught us know-how in Itate, Aizu, Kawamata, Minamisoma, Chiba, Ueda. So that in various places they taught us how to make electricity locally. And in terms of concrete action, we started this thing called solar sharing. The 3 NGOs that I just showed you a minute ago, they are panel supported. They use crowdfunding and made 16 million, well, 4 million, which is a fourth of the 16 million needed. We were able to raise that money through crowdfunding, and that could be helped us to get over various obstacles that were in our way. After the disaster, 7 years later, and this is in 2018, that was a big landmark. And then this year, this is in Nihonmatsu City again. We now have a solar sharing 40 times bigger, which will be built this year in about August or September. So TSUKADA Haru, who was at the time, has come back to Fukushima to work in agriculture, and solar sharing has endless possibilities, and agriculture and solar power generation are a good combination, basically, that can be very scalable in the future. So Nihonmatsu, what will be the next milestone for that? For next year or the next year, we're not going to get this just in a couple of years. Denmark, for example, were 32 years. They went from fossil fuel generation to clean energy. We want the same for Nihonmatsu. So 50,000 people live in Nihonmatsu, and we have 72 megawatt power at the moment, and local consumers, owners and other owners, and we did some mathematics here, and I showed you in local users are 3/4, but output was only 1/8 of. But on the other hand, out of the prefecture, there's only a fourth of them are outside, but they make up for. But you might think we don't need any further facilities then in that case. But even if we have so many, renewable energy, we only have 48% renewable energy in Nihonmatsu. How do we increase renewable energy provision in Nihonmatsu? One of them is solar sharing, I think, definitely. Of course, renewable energy, there are various obstacles in the way, but mainly there's internal obstacles and external obstacles. The internal ones, I won't go into them, but I just want to give you one example of an external. This is about getting approval for so what the underlined here says, we were basically, there were restrictions on agriculture, and I think 10 years later, I think I can see a new horizon for an innovation. As Schumpeter said, it's basically a new combination of existing knowledge and existing technology. iPhone is has basically combined touch screen technology with mobile phone and 3G circuit, but it's the same with, if you combine agriculture, solar and VPP, you can make a new innovation from existing knowledge by combining existing knowledge. And finally, Fukushima Nihonmatsu, I have a dream of telling the story of Nihonmatsu and Fukushima. After the disaster, the MPO, to repay them for all their help they gave to us when we were in a difficult situation, disparity between lands, the disparity between the generation gap, and we need to have these a meld. Nihonmatsu can be the place where these disparities end, and there are still Philippine farmers. We can invite them to Nihonmatsu, and we want to have discussion with them about what they've been through and what they've overcome. So local companies and Tokyo companies, it's very interesting. Local companies are very important. Solar sharing. Are there any plans to expand solar sharing in the future? I think 2 hours ago, solar sharing, there's an article about solar sharing that just came out, and it's a really great initiative. And it was someone in the town next to us, but he asked if we could do solar sharing with us. So already we're getting lots of inquiries about solar sharing. Ueta-san, how about you? In terms of policy and getting approval for solar facilities, if we can get over those big obstacles, there are various problems that can be solved, and by such initiatives as solar panel, solar generation, and agriculture. So, Mr. TSUKADA Haru, who is working with Mr. KONDO Kei, who will now speak to us. Hello. Can you see my screen? I'm TSUKADA Haru from the company called Sunshine, and we have 6 hectares and 4 megawatt plant. We are currently constructing it, and we don't have it at the moment, but we're currently building it. And Mr. Kondo just told you the details. So I'm going to talk about Fukushima and organic farming from consumer to producer. So I want to just talk about my own experience today. Thank you. So this is a picture of me when I was 3. I was born in 2002 in Chiba, and then we moved to Nihonmatsu when I was 3 years old. And I think Nihonmatsu is my hometown, even though I wasn't born there. My mother was very interested in food safety, and so we were in the Nihonmatsu Yuki Vegetable Association. So we were involved my parents were involved in organic farming and the selling of organic vegetables. We also had various growing experiences, and I experienced organic farming as a consumer as well. And 9 years old, the 3/11 earthquake happened, but there were not major damage in Nihonmatsu. We were 50 kilometers away from the explosion, and we weren't in the evacuation area. However, my parents felt they had abandoned their hometown. My mum's from Hyogo in Kobe. She's from Kobe in Hyogo Prefecture, so we went down to Kobe, and my father stayed in Fukushima, but then he got a job in Hyogo, so they ended up living in Hyogo. At the time, there wasn't much information about what was going on at the plant, and I think they made the right decision. But some people decided to stay in Fukushima, and some people couldn't leave the area. They feel like they have abandoned their hometown. Such people who couldn't leave, and people who chose to leave, there was a lot of fear about radiation, and people changed their attitude quickly towards organic farming. They started buying safe food, organic vegetables, but they started to avoid Fukushima's produce. And so about 60% of consumers went away from buying Fukushima produce. A lot of people said, don't eat Fukushima food. And I used to hear that a lot around me, like, don't eat Fukushima food. I don't know that was necessarily wrong, but that did enormous damage to the farmers of Fukushima. And so I think organic farming is very much provides a guarantee of safety and relief. But I thought that it was strange how people changed their attitude quickly. People want to protect the health of their family. And people's health was in peril, and they were all very worried. However, as the consumers want to protect their health. That's fine, but I believe that organic farming is, I started to wonder what is the essence of organic farming? What exactly is organic farming? So in Mie Prefecture, there's a agricultural high school that I went to, and with the essence of organic farming is I was able to learn a lot about organic farming, and what I learned there is the essence of organic farming is, of course, it's safe and it's reassuring, but it's not just safe and reassuring organic farming. It's what I came up with is the essence of organic farming is thought and the organic connection between people. That's what I realized. And I realized this isn't just connected to the use of pesticides and so on. A lot of people wanted to, a complete, no pesticides and no herbicides. And through my learnings at high school, I started to think in the point of view as a consumer and started to think about what it means to be a producer of organic vegetables from the producer's side. My third year at high school, I heard from Mr. KONDO Kei, and I came back to Nihon Matsu for the first time in 9 years, and I ended up working in solar sharing. While growing crops, you can also generate electricity. I really felt a sense of hope about this. And you can grow your own food, and in the same way you can create the energy that you use, and you can even get an income for it. This is the new kind of peasant farming, I realized. However, peasants a long time ago got wood from the mountains to burn, but while solar sharing is to keep the mindset of peasants from a long time ago. And my conception of organic agriculture came from this. Currently, I've started the company called Sunshine, and we have a 4 megawatt and 6 hectare solar farm under construction. And I hope that this can become a symbol of hope for Japan, for organic farming in Japan. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Mr. Scudder. You just took the decision to evacuate by yourself, and as a young person from Fukushima, you have then taken up a career in organic farming. It's very impressive. How about you, Mr. Ueda? From when he was young, he was very interested in organic farming, and he had a very deep conviction about organic farming and wanted to find, when he thought about the essence of it, he realized the connection between people was most important, and then decided to think about the consumer point of view. And solar sharing was this new mode with new technology, but with an old mindset, a peasant mindset. And so to keep the old mindset with the new technology, I think that's really, really neat. So next, we are looking at Minamisoma City and an initiative from Minamisoma City in Fukushima. We are going to be here from Sohei Takashima. Hello, everyone. I'm Sohei Takahashi, and can you hear me okay? I mean, solar sharing is a topic I like to look at, and also about the actual disaster itself. I think you might be looking at this on various media, but there was a big earthquake and tsunami, and then a nuclear power plant accident 10 years ago. And if you look at this picture, you can, bottom left, you can see people evacuating. You can see people who need care. There were lots of older people with under risk that needed to evacuate. And you can see they haven't got much luggage with them, just a bag. They think they can be able to come back home soon, but they still haven't come home, some of these people. And in terms of exposure to radiation, there's definitely has been a lot going on. My father is from Minamisoma, and for 40 years ago was an obstetrician and gynecologist in Minamisoma. And he worked as a clinician, you know, a ladies gynecologist, obstetrician for 40 years. And he says that the town itself is the patient, and the town, patients equals family equals the town. And so he wanted to protect the town. He was actually diagnosed with cancer in June in 2011, and he's got this, you can see in his breast pocket, he's actually on cancer medicine here. And we set up the Minamisoma Decontamination Research Institute, and so was important within the reconstruction plan of Minamisoma to have this Decontamination Research Institute. And so this was written in as a written protocol. And as Mr. Tsukada mentioned a minute ago, no one really knew at the time about radiation and how should we interpret the information. We have to protect the children. That was most people's priority at the time. But if you look at the bottom here, we also decided that we needed to, you know, research into clean energy and new technologies, and that's what we were talking about 10 years ago when we resolved to set up this research institute. So this is a map here which is showing 17. This is in Minamisoma city. This is showing the average radiation exposure amount and how it's going down at 17 observation points. You can see here how it's gone down. And the it's reducing faster than the half-life of the isotopes. And I think that could have been through the effects of decontamination, but people living in somewhere moves the air, they think. But there were some reasons why the radiation levels have gone down. And we had, from April, there was 0.5 microsieverts, more than that. But now, 10 years ago, we got data from October of last year, and that's gone down to 0.1. So we can tell from the numbers that things have definitely improved, I would say. And in terms of the recovery, the rehabilitation from the disaster, there are good things and negative things and obvious things. But on the disaster occurred, and then we can look at the time here. We're now 10 years on since the earthquake and the incident. But what about 20 years later? What about 30 years later? We couldn't really see a clear route to recovery. But if we started to think about a new normal, a new way of living, a new kind of richness, something different up till now, but we can live in a more enjoyable and more rewarding environment. This will lead to real reconstruction, we felt. And so based on this, we came up with solar sharing as a way to expedite this new approach. And so we had some budget from the state, and in 2015 we were able to build 8 solar facilities here in Minamisoma, a solar village. So these are various types of photovoltaic arrays, but there's stuff that use different types of array here. So the 7 is, you can see the different configurations anyway, but in order to return this to the community, we have this Nanoha rapeseed project here, and we made this rapeseed mayonnaise, and oil as well, rapeseed oil, and Lush, very well-known cosmetics store. We teamed up with them and to make some various products with Lush. And I think from the Hanshin Awaji earthquake disaster to the Great East Japan earthquake disaster, there are many natural catastrophes in this country. And what have we experienced and what have we learned from these myriad disasters? And how do we actually put these learnings into practice? And how can we create a society that leads to a future with a sort of attractive towns that we can live in peace, in relief? We need to think about future disaster risk reduction and mitigation. How do we create such a town? What kind of conditions do we need to be looking to create? That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takahashi. So it's actually very challenging project to keep measuring the radiation levels, but I think it is very important. And you mentioned the rapeseed oil and the crop. I think that's a great project to keep the money flowing through in the local economy. Thank you. We're talking about renewable energies and solar sharing and how you wanted this to be just normal in life going forward. I think that's really important. And it's something that young people can also participate in. And it's also something I think that young people really need to be aware of from now. So me personally, as a member of the younger generation, really want to keep this in mind. Thank you. Okay, so next we have Rika Takagi. Could you give your presentation? Okay, hi everybody. My name is Rika Takagi. I'm not really involved in renewable energy or anything at the moment, but I was born and raised in Fukushima. And I would like to talk about what I've been thinking about over the past 10 years and how I want to live from now on going forward. I'm from Fukushima City. When I was little, I used to play in the forest, collecting insects and playing by the river. When I was 13, I experienced the disaster, and my family didn't evacuate. But what really changed for us is that my parents started fostering. My parents started, they felt that they wanted to look after children that had been orphaned because of the earthquake and disaster. And so they started fostering the children because they realized that the disasters happened. There's nothing we can do about that. But they wanted to help somehow by fostering these orphans. So now I have lots of brothers and sisters. And we participate in the FOE Poka Poka project together with my new brothers and sisters. And through the Poka Poka project, I went to Germany to learn about renewable energies. And that was my first time going to Germany, actually. And I was really influenced by what I saw in Germany. And so after high school, I went to study in Germany. And Germany is really progressive in terms of environmental issues. And so after the nuclear disaster in Fukushima, in Germany, there was a movement to get rid of nuclear power plants. And in Germany now, there's no nuclear power plants. Well, they are working towards having no nuclear power plants. And there's also work relating to renewable energies and wind power and reducing CO2 emissions. Lots of discussion going on around these issues in Germany, I found. And the citizens and civil society has a strong power to change society. That's what I felt in Germany. So I was in Germany for 3 years. And I was also interested in how they teach history in Germany, specifically how they teach about the history of the war. And I noticed that each area or region properly has a strong culture of properly discussing issues that are relevant to them. And so when I was in Germany and then started to think about Fukushima, and I looked at Fukushima from a kind of German point of view, it made me think about what happened and how much does each individual person take interest in the nuclear disaster. I know it's not good to use stereotypes like Japanese people, but I feel that in Japan, there's less interest in social issues, maybe less than in Germany. And each individual person needs to be interested in what's happening in society. That's what I learned when I was in Fukushima, in Germany, I mean. And now I'm back in Japan, and I'm really interested in technology. And the reason for this is because when I look at the society that we have now, you look at Google and Microsoft, these big companies have a lot of power. For example, if Google changes the algorithms, they can influence what we see on our screens. So I realized that one company has the power to change the way a society thinks and can influence elections. So these big companies have a lot of power. And it's similar to how a big electricity company had a lot of power in Fukushima. And I think this structure is very dangerous, and I think it's quite problematic. So if a big company has this power, then that means that us as individual members of society are losing our opportunity to influence decisions. So I think we need to move away from these big companies, big corporations that have a lot of power. Maybe until now, we just had to kind of go along with these big corporations because they had a huge amount of power. But now with technology, with blockchains and AI, these new types of technology are kind of balancing out the power and spreading out the power. So as the technology advances, I think that will help us solve some problems. So that's why I'm really interested in new technology at the moment. And I hope that people around the world, instead of having the big, strong organizations or corporations kind of ruling everything, I think in the future we need individual people to have the power in order to solve the problems that we are facing. So I'm from Fukushima, and I grew up seeing people doing their best for Fukushima. So I would like to do something in the future to help build a society that's decentralized. Thank you. Okay, so next, shall we hear from Mr. Ueda? Yeah, Thank you. You're talking about Germany and how each individual member of society takes an interest in social issues, environmental issues, and I agree that that's very important. And as you said, a decentralized model of society, I think that's also really important. As a youth from Fukushima, I think it's important for us to take an interest in the things in our daily lives. For example, where does our energy come from? And it's important for us to ask for change when we think there should be change. And as Ms. Takagi said, I hope that we can help to contribute to this kind of change in society. What do you think? Yes, when you look at big corporations, for example, an electricity company, and the relationship between them and individual consumers, and then that's the structure of society. And this is definitely going to be relevant in the future as well. And as you were saying earlier during the meeting that you want to be involved in community building in Fukushima in the future. So I hope that this session can be a chance for you to connect with other people who are active in Fukushima.
Okay, so last of all, we're going to hear from Mr. SATO Yauemon from Fukushima Natural Energy Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Yauemon. I'm SATO Yauemon. Hello. I'm from Kitakata in city in Aizu. And do you drink Japanese sake, everyone? Delicious. We've been making it for 230 years in my family company. I'm the 9th generation owner. And before the accident happened, I was a locally farmed, locally produced. We say pass it on to the next generation, the agriculture. And so I'm now old, so I want to pass on to the next generation. And then the Fukushima, I was 60 when the Fukushima earthquake and nuclear incident disaster happened. And I think until then, the water, the rice, the environment, technology were all around me. And when the accident happened, what I noticed was electricity where is it coming from and what is it made from and where are we getting our electricity from? I started to think about it. And that's what my mind got going. And could not depend on electricity companies and make it ourselves? That will become a move. Instead of buying uranium or fossil fuels and burning them, that was the traditional way. That's where we got our electricity from. And as you can see here, so local renewable energy is basically doing it in your own community. You went to Germany, went to Denmark, and learned. Some of our panelists said, and they've seen biomass in action and so on. But when it was 30-something years since the Chernobyl accident, and in Europe, I think at that time there was a big, it was a big brouhaha in Europe at the time. They said the fossil fuel price started to fluctuate, and so they started to realize it was dangerous to rely on nuclear power. And that was 30 years ago. But Japan said, oh, they never break, they're the safe. We were told a lie basically from the state about the safety of nuclear power. And we understood very clearly in this incident that nuclear power is not safe and it is not steady. And it's not cheap. We were always told nuclear power was cheap. It's definitely anything but cheap. To decommission, to decontaminate. Is that cheap? I don't think so. I think we've been sold a bundle of lies about nuclear power in Japan. And so that's what led us to build Aizu Electric. So let's make our energy ourselves on a community base. And so I am involved in agriculture as well. We need rice to make sake for my sake brewing company. But so we solar sharing as well. We also got involved in that. And this is a very good system. And so Aizu Denroku, Aizu Electric, we wanted to use renewable energy including solar, and we had lots of 88 solar installations at the moment, and so we've also doing small water generation, small mini hydroelectric. So we've got mini hydroelectric, we've got wind power, we've got solar power. This is what Aizu Electric is currently doing. And we're also looking at biomass electricity generation. So there's a lot of woodland resources near, and from Edo into Meiji era, they used to chop down trees in the mountain and burn them, and they had enough at the time. I'm talking 200 years ago. But biomass, there's a lot of alternative energy sources, biomass, solar, wind power, etc. And each of these energy sources are the same as organic farming. Any person can do it anywhere. So consumers, what kind of people are going to buy our electricity? We want it to be safe and reliable. And it's the same as agriculture, it's the same as energy. Who's making it, where is it being made, is it safe, is it reliable? The people who are using the energy, on the consumers, want to know how their electricity is being made. And the people, and who are these people who are using our, our renewable energy? So I think they want to come and see what we're doing, and consumers come and see what kind of facilities we've got. And we talk about this decentralized, instead of the traditional way of big centralized production. They'd be in a blackout, but you need decentralized community electricity generation. You can just make the amount you need and then consume the amount that you need, and you have a steady supply and usage of. And so this is small scale, decentralized. It's the same as agriculture, right? And you need diversity. Where there's lots of trees in the mountains, you can have biomass. Where there's a lot of sun, you can do solar. The correct place needs the correct form of energy. That's the principle. And instead of looking at something far away, I think in Nihonmatsu, right around us, we have loads of great resources. We don't need to look far away. What we needed was all around us. And we can do all of this with these resources that are right in front of us. So people talk about the future and so on, but economic profit, let's grow economically. Did this make us rich? Did this make us plentiful? I don't think so. We've got everyone concentrated in the Tokyo area, and if a big disaster happens again, I think 70 million people are living in the one area of East Japan. It makes it very vulnerable. I can't stop speaking when I start. You'll have to excuse me. So stop me if I'm going on. Tokyo. Okay, so with the COVID-19 crisis at the moment, Tokyo is now is dangerous. You're having too many people in one place is not safe. Okay, so from now on, we need to look at what is bountiful, what is really bountifulness. Where is it? How do we live in true richness? We have the opportunity to make the future that we want, and in the nuclear incident, it's completely ruined everything, community, everything. We can't possibly allow that to happen. And as was said today by Koizumi earlier in Tokyo, from now on, we have to decommission nuclear powers. Nuclear power plants, we will be decommissioning them from now on. And in place of that, what are we going to do in their place? How are we going to make our energy? In Fukushima Prefecture, they want 100% renewable energy by 2040, as they said in 2012. So for us people in the area, so should we all put our money together or go to banks and get their money and to make renewable energy? If we can do that 100%. However, we are now in a sort of colonialism with nuclear powers where they have their little nuclear power plants and all the money is sucked out, much like a colonial empire. They've got a straw in Fukushima and sucking out all the goodness. That's no good. Fukushima Prefecture, we have our locally produced energy in Fukushima, and we're not just going to make it in Fukushima, we're going to use it in the community as well. That's what we have to say. The Fukushima prefectural people will make it themselves and consume themselves. Tokyo Electric Power, they caused, Fukushima has suffered this terrible outrage, and that's my thought about, so we mustn't leave it to other people and we mustn't leave it in the hands of other people. And this is what we've got from doing that in the past. So we need to get our thinking caps on and think about the next generation. And I'm now the past generation, but you guys who are left, I want to pass on to you I want you guys to really to do your best, and I will be encouraging you from behind and giving you the encouragement you need. Japan went the wrong direction. You went this way instead of this way at a very important turning point. Japan should have gone this way. So we need to go back to that crossroads where we took the wrong turn, and then, but that's okay. We'll get waylaid. That's okay. It doesn't matter. We need to change the trajectory that we're on. We need to turn the boat round, and it doesn't matter if we get waylaid, but we go back and then we go in the correct direction, and that's what's real richness is. What's real a new future. We haven't got courage to go back, but we don't have to hurry. We need to we need the power to go back and make the right turning, I think, is the biggest thing in post-war Japan. We ended up taking a very big wrong turning, and that's something we have to redress. I'll end there.
ありがとうございました。本当にね、福島県内で、自分たちで電気を作って自分たちで使う。
Thank you very much.
ね、本当に
Yes. Thank you for talking about the situation within Fukushima. We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll have one comment from each speaker to end today's session. So Fukushima has said that by 2040 they're going to get to 100% renewable energy. So within Japan it's quite progressive. But at the same time, as Mr. Kondo presented right at the beginning, there's lots of companies from Tokyo that are going to be when they try and make this renewable energy production, they might do very big projects that could damage the environment. Or if it's companies based in Tokyo, it means all the profit could be pouring out of Fukushima into Tokyo. So this can also cause division within the region. So it's not quite, it could be, we could end up with some sort of renewable energy that isn't great. So even within renewable energy, we need to get good renewable energy. And so within that, I think what our speakers have been sharing today is very important. So with this in mind, please tell me about your plans for the future, your wishes for the future, or a message you have for the people watching today. Mr. Kondo, could you start? Yes, so from me, when we're talking about Tokyo power companies in Nihonmatsu, so that might have shocked you slightly, but I am from Fukushima, and the people in Fukushima may be a little bit kind of passive. So in that graph, the blue graph was, the blue dots were filling the picture, but I think it's good. And in the future, the yellow dots will really increase. And of course, it would be great if we were right there from the start, but we still have time to catch up and we can continue. And so maybe it was the companies based in Tokyo that saw the opportunity at first and they invested in Fukushima. And that's okay. That's how it's happened. And okay, maybe we might be one step behind them, but now that us local people have also recognized this possibility in Fukushima, we can catch up and continue this project. And as Ms. Takagi said in her presentation, she said the big companies, big corporations are kind of denying us our space to think. And this really struck a chord with me. And I think when we're talking about this kind of space that we have to think, it's almost like trial and error. We need to have the space to do trial and error to find the right answer. And I'd really like to encourage the young people, especially people in their teens, to go on with this kind of project in the future. Okay, Mr. Tsukada, please could you share? So I'm specializing in agriculture, so I don't really know so much about agriculture, renewable energy, but from my personal perspective, about 1 month ago, we switched our electricity that we're using at home to a renewable energy supplier. So you could actually say, why hadn't we done this earlier? But now we've managed to make this change. And in the future, I really think we need to change big things in society. Without this big change, we can't achieve what we want to achieve. But at the same time, people like me, individual citizens, can do what they can in their own lives. And we need to think about what kind of future we want, what we want to support, and look back at where we are. My short comment. So actually, yes, because it's March 11th, let's change our power suppliers energy shift. That's actually something we are encouraging throughout this event today. Okay, Mr. Takahashi, do you have a comment? Yes. So as I was listening to everyone's presentations just now, as Mr. Tsukada said, he was talking about organic farming, and he was saying that's a way of thinking. And in other presentations, we also talked about values and ways of thinking. And I think it's not so much about Fukushima, not Fukushima. there's not so much that one individual person can do. It might be small, but we have experienced the disaster, and as victims or survivors of the disaster, we have to think about what we can do. And maybe what can happen is a change in thinking, a change in values. And renewable energy itself is not the goal, it's a tool to achieve our goals. And if we can use renewable energy as a tool in order to reach a more interesting future, I think that's what we should be focusing on. And we should stay focused on this, not get sidetracked. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Takagi, can you give us a comment too? I was listening to everyone's presentation, and as the other speakers were saying, it's not about money, it's not just about economic rich. I mean, that's not the only thing that's important. Experiencing the earthquake and nuclear disaster, it really made us think about what is it that makes our life rich. Okay, Yauemon, Mr. Yauemon, can you give us a comment too? So we're talking about renewable energy and environmental issues and the global warming, climate change. The world is changing. Organic farming is the same. People want to buy organic produce, and same with renewable energy. People want to buy and use renewable energy. And if this doesn't change, if the consumer's choice don't change, then no matter how hard we as producers make the choices, it won't have an impact on society. So we need the consumers to make the correct choice and the producers to also make the correct choice. We can't just leave it up to other people. That's the most damaging thing to our society, and we just end up kind of trying to make money. And same for politics, I think. So you have to make proper, conscious, correct decisions, choices. I think the choices that we make, that's really important. So when we're deciding with my company, I'm going to make a company called Aizu Energy, and I would like people to choose our power. And we all need to make this decision together, this choice together.
上田さんお願いします。
はい、皆さんのお話の中でもあった、
Okay.
特に今、ヤオヤモンさんがおっしゃったみ
Mr. Ueta, thank you. Yes, as everyone has been saying, it's not just about knowing things, it's about making a choice and taking action.
こそ、
And 10 years since the disaster, we have learned a lot. And so I think now it's time for us, the young generation, to take action. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございます。私たちのね、消費者の側からの
So we are, as consumers, we have a campaign for power shift for consumers, and I really hope that this will be a good opportunity for us to connect with you as consumers. Today, thank you very much for everyone who joined and watched the session. And I'm sure there's lots of things that we can all do together, including people watching us today. This event was organized with ICEP. Thank you, ICEP, for your support. Thank you.